My name is Jonathan Ingrasano. I'm a proud graduate of Marquette University Law School, class of '99, and a shareholder at Godfrey & Kahn. Tonight, however, I'm here in my capacity as president of your Marquette Law Alumni Association. This evening is my favorite alumni event because we get to hear the enriching stories of Marquette lawyers that have answered the call to do more, not just in their legal careers, but in their lives of others as well and in service to others. Our honorees tonight live Marquette's principle of cura personalis, and they truly embody what it means to be the difference in other people's lives. Every year I leave this event deeply inspired and proud of the impact Marquette lawyers have and are making, not just here in Milwaukee, but beyond. And I'm sure tonight will be no different. So sit back and enjoy this special evening. Before we begin, a few minor notes. First, I would ask that you all please join me in a moment of silence on the passing of Pope Francis this past Easter Sunday. Thank you. Pope Francis's lasting legacy on the Jesuits, the church, and the greater world really cannot be measured. We will miss him, and may he rest in peace. Second, on a much more mundane note, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. There is always one in the crowd. Don't let it be you. And now it is my great honor to introduce you to Dr. Kimo Ayun, the 25th president of Marquette University. We are privileged to have him with us this evening to offer a special welcome. Please join me in giving him a warm round of applause.
It's so good to be here. And I've come to this ceremony many times. It seems like there are more people than usual, but Dean Kearney can tell us whether or not that's true. Maybe like you found out the food is really good here, and it's worth coming back. I want to thank you all for being here. This is important. I talk about 3 points in the university calendar that I really appreciate, that are my 3 favorite points of my year. The first is when our students start the beginning of their school year, their first time at Marquette, whether or not in the law school or the dental school or as an undergraduate. The second is at graduation, because it's an opportunity for us to be able to send them on their way. But the third are all of our alumni events. And we talk about transforming the lives of our students. We talk about our students going out and making a difference. We can't see that when they're here. We only see that 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. And so a culmination of all of those things that are happening show up today, and you'll be able to see it. At Marquette, we talk about guiding values, and these are the things that lead us forward: faith, excellence, leadership, and service. And at an event like this, and when we start to recognize people, we see those things played out. And I had a chance to read up about the 4 recipients today, and they align with what we want our students to do upon graduation. Mark talks about ethical decision-making. Joe talks about having a practical impact on others. Mary talks about giving confidence to others to be able to move them forward. And Christian talks about building genuine relationships. And so when you do those things, that you've created a really successful class and a university. And I would say outside of this, as Marquette continues to be really strong, enrollment is strong, our philanthropy continues to be strong, and we have incredible new spaces. Even this space, even though it's not new now, it's an incredible space for our students to learn and grow. So thank you for being here. And with that, I would like to introduce my boss, Dean Joe Kearney.
Thank you, President Ayun, for your leadership of Marquette University, and your welcome to all of us this evening. And thank you also to Jonathan Ingrisano for your service this past year as president of the Law Alumni Association Board. And all of us extend our thanks to all of you for being here this evening. Our occasion for this gathering is to celebrate the ideal of the Marquette lawyer. We do this primarily by presenting awards to 4 specific individuals, highlighting a handful of exemplars among the very many Marquette lawyers worthy of recognition. Yet we start the ceremony by looking, in a sense, briefly to the future. We have the opportunity, once again, as now for a decade and a half, to announce the Ralph J. Harris Law School Citizen Award. This remembers the late Ralph Harris of our class of 1941 and is annually underwritten by the Harris Foundation, which has been led by Ralph's law partner, Bill Farrell, of our class of 1968, who's represented this evening by his grandson, Will Farrell, a Marquette University undergraduate. The award provides scholarship support to a student entering his or her second year of study at Marquette Law School. We present it to someone who, during his or her first year, has added to the spirit of the law school by demonstrating a broad spectrum of qualities, including professionalism, a willingness to help fellow students, involvement in the law school and broader community, and other indicia of the Marquette University mission. Drawing on nominations by first-year students, the selection committee of my colleagues has chosen Heather Walla for this year's Harris Award. Heather, you are already aware of this honor, but would you please stand up here with us for a moment? Heather is a highly engaged first-year student, both with her fellow classmates in student organizations and to the benefit of the larger community in her pro bono work. She looks for opportunities to learn beyond the classroom, for example, taking first place, along with her teammate, in the law school's intramural negotiation competition this spring, and she is looking forward to work this summer as an intern at the State Public Defender's Office in Milwaukee. She came to us after graduating from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and subsequently several years working at the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. As for these early-ish days of law school, though almost a year now, a nominator, a fellow first-year law student, wrote, "It's hard to imagine someone as consistently positive, dedicated, and kind. Heather stands out." Heather, kudos to you on the Harris Award. Congratulations also to Kendra Moan and Elizabeth Tenbarge, who, as our Harris Award finalists, will receive a partial scholarship. They, too, impressed the nominating classmates and the selection committee with their personal qualities, professional characteristics, and care for their colleagues. Indeed, as with the Alumni Awards, it would be great to be able to recognize yet more individuals. So let me commend all of our students for what they are doing to help build the Marquette Law School community and the profession. You inspire and impress us. Thank you. We begin with the Charles W. Mentkowski Sports Law Alumnus or Alumna of the Year Award. We like this award so well that we give it twice. The other occasion will be tomorrow night in a celebration of the sports law program, although we will give it to the same person. The award remembers a longtime faculty member and associate dean at the law school who was among those instrumental in the creation of our sports law program beginning in 1989. This native Southside Milwaukeean, Chuck Mentkowski, thus played an important role in launching the program that has done more than any other to bring geographic diversity to the ranks of our student body. Christian Bray, farthest away from me here, is such an individual. Asked to name her hometown, Christian will tell you that not only did various cities in Ohio help shape who she is and her adaptability as a professional, Cleveland, Columbus, and Dayton are on her list, but so too did Dallas-Fort Worth and Ventura, California. How glad we are that her degree in sport management from Texas A&M University helped point her to Milwaukee and Marquette for her law school years, especially to study sports law. Christian certainly embraced the opportunities available in our sports law program. In Professor Paul Anderson's words, as a student, Christian was involved in everything we do. That may have been a particular reference to the sports law program, but to an extent, it is true more generally. Continuing a theme dating back at least to her high school years, where community service activities as part of her school's chapter of Fellowship of Christian Athletes were a staple for her, Christian was involved in community service here, from initiatives of our Black Law Students Association to service at the Milwaukee Justice Center in the county courthouse, working with individuals and families. She embraced challenges. For example, she reports being terrified to take federal income tax, and yet she did so, knowing it to be important and valuable, to be worth overcoming the reluctance. This has been Christian's professional approach since graduating as a Marquette lawyer in 2014. Her first stop was in New Haven at Yale University, where she soon became Assistant Athletic Director for Compliance and, shortly thereafter, the university's Senior Woman Administrator in Athletics, an important position required by the NCAA Constitution. During this time, she retained administrative responsibility for a number of specific sports, women's volleyball and gymnastics. Christian regarded 4 years in New Haven, about the right length of time, I think, as preparation not for Broadway, but rather Cambridge, Massachusetts. In 2018, Christian became Associate Director of Athletics, overseeing compliance at Harvard University. She is responsible for supervision in a number of sports, including women's rugby, men's fencing, women's volleyball, men's and women's cross country, and men's and women's track and field. These past several years have been a dynamic and change-filled time in collegiate athletics, and Christian has excelled in bringing her legal education and her relational skills to bear on her work with students, coaches, fellow administrators, and others to support Harvard student athletes in their education, development, and growth. Her recognition within the community of collegiate athletics can be seen in any number of ways, such as her recent appointment to the NCAA Division I Women's Volleyball Selection Committee. While Christian's professional accomplishments at other schools since graduating a decade or so ago are outstanding, she very much remains an impressive part of Marquette Law School despite the distance. She has created internships for Marquette law students, hired fellow Marquette lawyers, provided career guidance to students and alumni, and regularly returned for career panels, as recently as this semester, conferences and seminars, and admissions recruiting events. She created and provides the financial support for our Collegiate Issues in Sports Writing competition, encouraging current students to roll up their sleeves and learn and write in an area of the industry undergoing many changes and offering many opportunities for post-graduation employment. And she is a member of our National Sports Law Institute's Board of Advisors. In short, as Professor Anderson has summarized it to me, Christian is someone who is available to us and our students and alums and continues to be an indispensable part of our sports law program. Christian, would you please come forward as I conclude? Christian, your time in Milwaukee was relatively brief, the 3 years of law school. Yet we affect to welcome you home, commend you for your energetic and exemplary service to collegiate athletics and especially collegiate athletes and this law school, and we ask you to accept the Charles W. Mentkowski Sports Law Alumna of the Year Award.
Thank you, Dean Kearney. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude as this award means more than anybody could really know. I'd like to take a few moments to thank those who have been instrumental in my life and career. First, thank you to my husband. It's right there in the second row. He supports me in so many ways, but specifically in my efforts to be the best professional and mother. I have 2 young children that I can be every day. I would like to thank my parents for instilling the values of integrity and service in me, similar to the namesake of this award. I would like to thank my friends, Ashley, Krista, and I see my friend Ethan made it in the back, wasn't sure, who traveled from Houston, New York, and Boston to be here tonight. So, traveled a long way for me. There's so many people from Marquette, and Marquette Law specifically, that have impacted my life in big ways and small. I'll name a few, but excuse the brevity, it won't be everyone. Christine told me we have to be pretty quick tonight. But I could truly fill this entire program with thank yous to all of those who have impacted me. I'd like to thank Stephanie Nicolay, professors Matt Mitten and Veda Lindsay, and last but not least, Professor Paul Anderson, whose tremendous support and tremendous and continuing support has meant so much to me. I would also like to congratulate my fellow award recipients. It's an honor to receive this award alongside you, and I admire the accomplishments and service that you all represent. Thank you.
Good to see you. I saw you at Penn State.
Thank you, Christian, and congratulations. Our Howard B. Eisenberg Service Award this year is presented to Mary Ferwerda. Mary recently became the Chief Deputy Clerk of the Milwaukee County Circuit Court. This is an important position in our justice system, and no doubt Mary will bring to it the same energy and determination that she has brought to previous service in the courthouse. It is that service, especially directing the Milwaukee Justice Center, that underlies tonight's award. Yet let's go back, briefly enough, to an earlier time in Mary's life, to her hometown of Yankton, South Dakota. Mary has recounted for us her tenacity in making clear to a high school guidance counselor that whatever his misunderstanding may have been, she was indeed college-bound, and she made sure that they worked out together a curriculum that would support that. Sure enough, Creighton University would become Mary's alma mater. She earned her bachelor's degree and later a master's in counseling there. Mary's work at Creighton had a distinct service orientation, including the creation of an on-campus office of the Omaha YWCA Intimate Violence Resource Center. Thus, while our law school itself cannot claim credit for drawing Mary to Milwaukee, it is perhaps not surprising that this Jesuit university drew her here. Mary arrived in 2001 to work at Marquette University in the Division of Student Affairs. She quickly established herself as a recognized leader in developing programming for students. Mary demonstrated her characteristic tenacity in enrolling in our part-time evening program while working at Marquette. She recalls that she tried to quit every semester. Whether this is exactly so, we cannot doubt Mary's recollection that law school was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It required, among other things, a new way of thinking from my education and counseling background. What a great thing for our community that Mary persevered and stayed in Milwaukee. For the latter, the law school community is claiming some credit, and not just of a general sort. Mary's job after graduation emerged directly from programs in which she participated as a student. Mary has described how becoming involved with the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics as a student was life-changing. This means of service soon yielded something of a dream for her. I said several times during law school, Mary has told us of the MVLCs, I just want this to be my full-time job. At and around the law school, at the same time, other dreams were also developing into full-fledged ideas, and, as happens in the best of circumstances and places, the various dreams and ideas would merge into a specific plan. I am referring to the development of the Mobile Legal Clinic, which Marquette Law School launched with our partners during Mary's last year of law school. Mary became the first director of the Mobile Legal Clinic. As one of her nominators for this award has said, it was crucial to the success of the Mobile Legal Clinic that the person chosen to drive the clinic at its inception be motivated by the mission of the clinic and have the leadership and organizational skills to get it on the road and keep it on the road. That involved, among other things, knowing where it would go to serve clients, staffing it with volunteer lawyers and students, marketing it so that clients were aware of its availability, and dealing with the mechanical and operational issues of the van itself. Not to give away the identity of that particular nominator, and there were a number of others, this person also remarked, I have 7 daughters. If they all became clones of Mary Ferwerda, I would consider myself a parenting success. Mary soon became the executive director of the Milwaukee Justice Center. The MJC, a partnership among the Milwaukee County Clerk of Courts, the Milwaukee Bar Association, and Marquette Law School, has become, in the characterization of 2 judges writing in support of Mary's nomination, an invaluable resource for pro se litigants navigating the court system and for judges and all court system partners. Through it, volunteer attorneys and law students serve more than 10,000 clients a year. Under Mary's leadership, the MJC expanded to add an expungement pardon clinic, provide remote assistance for family forms during the pandemic, and host a clinic to assist with adult guardianship petitions. This is to say nothing of other successful initiatives, such as one responding to the plea of Milwaukee County's Child Support Services for help in starting a mediation program for low-income families seeking together to resolve placement, custody, and support issues. A nominator characterized Mary as striving every day to make the MJC a place where people are heard and are able to find other people who will dig in and help them find answers. And is doing so not just through her administrative leadership, but through a proclivity to dig in herself to help people. I have lost count, this person wrote, of the number of people who have come back to the MJC specifically to thank Mary for the care she showed them. Mary, would you please come forward as I conclude? Mary, I give some of the final word here to yet another of your nominators. She wrote that growing up, she imagined those with a servant's heart, a phrase that her Catholic pastor used, as being martyrs and doormats who were too weak to be anything more than a servant to others. Mary has exemplified for this individual that, in fact, a servant's heart may mean, in fact, and rather more may mean, tenacity and a fighting spirit. It seems most appropriate, then, that we should ask you to accept the Howard B. Eisenberg Service Award, reflecting that in Marquette lawyers such as you, his spirit lives on. Congratulations.
I've shed a lot of tears in this building, but never in front of the dean. Excuse me. Dean Kearney, President Ayun, all of those who submitted nominations, John Ingresano and the Alumni Board, Christine Walensky-Vogel, and your team for this lovely event. My fellow nominees, it's an honor to be with you here tonight. Thank you all so very much. I stand here truly full of gratitude for Dean Eisenberg's legacy, for becoming a Marquette lawyer, for everyone who has been a part of my journey and that of the Milwaukee Justice Center. Nothing great is accomplished alone, and I truly believe that many hands make for great work. Certainly that is true of the MJC. We MJCers stand on the shoulders of those visionary leaders who boldly joined forces to respond to a growing access to justice crisis by developing the MJC and the Mobile Legal Clinic. This list is long and includes folks from Marquette University Law School, the Milwaukee County Clerk of Circuit Court, the Milwaukee Bar Association and its foundation, and all the founders of the Mobile Legal Clinic. The legacy continues with those who have taken the mantle from our original founders to forge new pathways in partnership for the service of our community. This work has been the honor of my life. Sorry, oh my gosh, and I sniffed in the microphone. I'm grateful to be joined by every staff member of the Milwaukee Justice Center team, all of our hundreds of students, attorneys, community member volunteers, and AmeriCorps members who have shared thousands of hours of their time and expertise on behalf of our Milwaukee neighbors. And I'm grateful for those Milwaukee neighbors who trusted strangers with their stories and struggles in the hopes of receiving support and guidance for their civil legal problem. I personally owe a debt of gratitude which I can never repay to Ms. Jane Casper for not letting me drop out of law school. Mr. Jim Temmer for strongly encouraging me to apply for the executive director position, and Professor Andrea Schneider, who to this day continues to support me and believe in me. You each in your own way believed me when I was unsure and unable to believe in myself, and I'm so blessed that you did not let me stand back, but rather pushed me onward. And I thank all of you, everyone here who has been a part of the MJC or who has listened to me talk incessantly about the MJC and access to justice issues. We have built what I consider a real-life example of the community of kinship as described by Reverend Greg Boyle, a Jesuit who has worked with those escaping gang involvement and influence through homeboy industries in California. At a commencement speech, not mine, at another Midwest Jesuit institution, which you heard about, he said this: "What Martin Luther King said of church could well be said of your time here. It is not the place you go to, it is the place you go from. And you go from here to create a community of kinship, such that God might recognize it. You go from here to bend the world to grace. You imagine a circle of compassion, and then you imagine nobody standing outside that circle. And to that end, you walk to the edges of the circle, and you walk with those on the margins, and you stand with the powerless and the voiceless. You stand with the easily despised and the readily left out. You stand with those whose burdens are more than they can bear. You stand, in fact, with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop. You stand with the disposable so the day will come when we stop throwing people away. You seek a kind of compassion that can stand in awe of what the poor have to carry, rather than standing in judgment of how they carry it. And a great many people will look at you standing in the margins and accuse you, accuse you of wasting your time. But the prophet Isaiah writes, "In this place of which you say it is a waste, there will be heard again the voice of mirth, the voice of gladness, and the voices of those who sing." The American prophet, Bruce Springsteen, would call this the land of hope and dreams. And this is a song that very much inspires me, and if this were a movie, the opening strains would start playing right now. My dear friends and colleagues, so many of you have stood together as we welcomed into that circle of compassion those served by the MJC, and I really dare anyone to say to us that it has been a waste. Though we stand in joy today, we are not at a point where we can revel, because the circle of compassion remains deeply broken, and so very many still stand beyond. Much more work and many more hands are needed to mend it. Yet I hold deeply to the belief that people just like every one of you here in this room will continue to answer the call to join our community. We're pretty great. To offer hope, to share your expertise, and that someday, indeed, there will be heard again the voice of mirth, the voice of gladness, and the voices of those, as Dean Eisenberg would say, doing well and doing good, together in kinship. Thank you for this honor. It means more than I can ever tell you, but you probably can tell that since I'm crying. I dedicate this award to the memory of my late parents, and I hope that they would be proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. The 2025 Law Alumni Association's Lifetime Achievement Award goes to someone with whom Marquette University, in important senses, has been connected during his entire life, or even longer, if that's possible. Joseph E. Tierney III, Joe, for our purposes, graduated from Marquette Law School in 1966, first in his class, from the Marquette University College of Business before that, and before that, from Marquette University High School. Those parts of his life may have involved somewhat less than entire free will. His parents, Joseph E. Tierney Jr. and Bernice Young Tierney, had met as students at Marquette University in the 1930s, the former graduating from the law school in 1941. And we could go back farther, to 1911, when the first class that graduated after 3 years as Marquette's law school included one, Joseph E. Tierney. Indeed, the story of how that Joe Kearney, grandfather of our award recipient, even arrived to Milwaukee from the Upper Peninsula involves Marquette University and the Jesuits. Yet we do not give this award to Joe's forebears. It is what Joe has done across a lifetime in the law that warrants our primary attention. Foremost, as a basis, if you will, that has involved developing and accumulating expertise in tax law. This work continues to engage our award winner every day. Some of the enduring appeal to Joe is the teaching and learning process that the best lawyers know to be never-ending, even in areas less dynamic than that of tax law and policy. So the intellectual challenge has long appealed to our award recipient. But the draw also is, as he puts it, the practical day-to-day effect that it has on my clients. This means, for the knowledge has enabled Joe to provide, a full array of tax and business guidance in a wide range of situations. His practice encompasses long-term representation of companies across a spectrum of industries, including cold storage, gas line construction, investment management, software development, manufacturing, and import-export regulation. One can see in that last example alone how a lawyer's not keeping up with developments in the law, leaving aside whether the new tariffs rest on good legal authority, would disserve his client's interests. Without suggesting that the ordinary work for a going concern is easy, in any number of instances, Joe also has served as lead counsel in the transfer of businesses, the sale and purchase, and has extensive experience in entity selection and structuring. These businesses always involve individuals in one respect or another, or perhaps we should say in every respect, and often families. Suffice it to say that a tax lawyer with a practice such as Joe's cannot succeed at a high level or across a sustained period of time without rather exceptional soft skills. To become one with the Internal Revenue Code, as one of my law school classmates used to describe his aspiration in tax class, may be almost a necessary thing, but it is scarcely sufficient. Speaking of intergenerational concerns, we see the results of Joe's relational abilities in the form of his law firm, known as Meisner, Tierney, Fisher, and Nichols. The firm has borne his name for more than 40 years, and it has been Joe's professional home since 1967, when he received his LLM in taxation from NYU, only because one of his nominators credibly assured us Marquette University did not offer the degree. The only exception was a leave of absence for several years so that Joe might serve in the nation's armed forces. In fact, the firm, under a variety of names, has been in existence since 1848, the year that Wisconsin became a state, a remarkable achievement on the part of all involved in it. Yet if you sit down and talk with Joe, as I do annually with a couple other of his family members and some of our sports law students, the references to Joe's practice are likely to be incidental or, at any rate, illustrative. Joe is intensely interested in people and in serving them. This helped prompt Joe, more than a decade ago, to join our adjunct faculty, regularly teaching a course on sports industry taxation issues, the first such course in the country, I believe. Joe also has supported youth sports, soccer in particular, where the Milwaukee Kickers have benefited not just from Joe's legal expertise as area director and member of any number of committees, but also from his service on the sidelines more literally, even coaching a U14 boys state championship team some years ago. There is, I believe, a common theme in all of this, more general than the law. Some years ago, I went to an annual event sponsored by the Milwaukee Bar Association, looking back at, remembering, the careers and lives of a number of local lawyers. The speaker cataloged some of the things that law school does not teach about the law itself, about the craft of lawyering, about the challenges that lawyers face in the practice of law, not uniquely, but perhaps endemically. The speaker's basic point was that even after law school, there's an awful lot to learn. All of the situations that we lawyers face throughout our careers call for us to learn something. And where do we learn it, he asked. Almost always from other lawyers who tell us, or who show us by their own conduct, how to pick up that new knowledge that we need to be good lawyers. Lawyers learn from other lawyers because lawyers are also teachers. Joe, would you please come forward so that I may conclude? Joe, you may share a common name or two with any number of individuals, more even than those who came before you or after you in a direct line. Yet there is only one Joseph E. Tierney III, and we at Marquette University Law School, like your clients, your fellow lawyers in your firm, and others in the profession, have learned directly and uniquely from you. For you do not just reflect Marquette University's mission of excellence, faith, leadership, and service, but you help teach it. I consider myself among your students, if, unlike Christian, far from an upper-level tax course, and I ask you on behalf of our community to accept the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Dean Kearney, I'm honored to receive this award, especially in this company with whom I'm very impressed. It means a lot. It validates probably the second most important decision I ever made, and that is to be a lawyer. I'm a third generation Jesuit-trained lawyer. In Notre Dame terms, I'd be a triple domer. My father was likewise a triple domer, and actually, technically, I believe my grandfather was a triple domer, because when he came down to go to college, he was deemed he was an orphan and came down at the invitation of the Jesuits. He was not sufficiently ready, so he went to what was then the Marquette Academy for a year or two to build his skills to go on to college and then law school. So I guess he's a triple domer too. It means, more importantly, that I and they are Jesuit-educated lawyers. And within the context of Marquette, inculcated with the underlying understandings of the Jesuits and of the ethical issues that they present and of the intellectual superstructure that they wish to bring to bear on all of us who are students here. A point I want to make is this. I am a lawyer by vocation, and it's a privilege to be a lawyer and to practice law. But beyond that, I loved my time at the law school. It was great. When I came here, I had had an undergraduate degree and had studied kind of offhandedly. But when the law school opened its doors to me and I began to study the various issues in torts and contracts and all the other courses, it was tremendously enlightening. And for the first time in my academic career, I was truly engaged. And I appreciated two things about that. First, it was intellectually demanding. But secondly, it was not arbitrarily intellectually demanding. It was demanding in ways that would affect people's lives. And I learned that the law not only states the rules that restrict people's activities, but also that facilitate their efforts and create opportunities and ways to do things. And the long and short is, it changed my way of thinking about things. And in that regard, I just want to say, whether or not you actually practice law, if you've been through the law school and have graduated with a law degree, you see the world in different terms than you did before you entered law school. And that's immensely valuable. But for me, the practice was what I wanted to do. And in that regard, I was helped in many ways by many people. The first, of course, are my partners. I joined the firm in 1966, actually, and then went off to NYU, and then was drafted into the Army and served in the Army. Through all that time, I was practicing law and doing things not only for the Army, but for the firm. I've not done a lot of job hopping. I'm still with the firm. Now, the firm has changed. It's a little like your grandfather's axe, where your father replaced the blade and you replaced the handle. Yet it's the same thing. It hasn't changed in important respects. For me, I have found my partners to be unfailingly gracious, right-minded, and at the end of the day, talented. But most importantly, ethical. A lot of Marquette lawyers in that firm, and a lot of people who carry the ethical structures that came out of this law school. I say came out, still come out. By the way, it's a better law school now than it was when I was there, just so you know. The second group of people that helped throughout my career were my clients. I've been greatly blessed to be able to represent people with whom I'm fundamentally in sympathy, whose objectives were proper and right, and were objectives that I felt the need to to move forward. Now, that wasn't always the case, but it was, for the most part, the case, and I'm blessed to say today that some of them are in this audience. But at the end of the day, it's my family. I was able to look up to the example of my father, and for that matter, my grandfather, to hear the stories at the dinner table of their exercises in the law, and to see the law through their eyes, so that when I came to the law school, I had some sense of what I was getting into. But at the end of the day, it's my wife, Kay, who carried the day for me. She's hung around with me since 1966. We were married in 1968. She needed a period of due diligence, as someone in the audience said. For a person who has said that she does not have strong social skills, it's her social skills that have helped sustain me through the course of my career, and her consistent good judgment. We are blessed with 3 children, 2 of whom are lawyers in this town: Joe with Amundsen Davis, Martin with Michael Best. My daughter is an assistant professor at University of Minnesota in the philosophy department, but 2 out of 3 isn't bad. One of my grandchildren is in the law school, and I've got other opportunities. The door is not closed. But the final thing I want to say to you is this. I'm deeply engaged, the whole family is deeply engaged and invested in Marquette's law school. And Marquette's law school has given me the very vocation on which I've carried on my life. That makes this honor extremely important to me, and I hope to be able to live up to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. The final award this evening is our longest standing. It recognizes the law school's alumnus of the year. This year, the recognition, the award, goes to Mark Cameli of our class of 1985. This native of Chicago Heights, Illinois, has made Wisconsin his home since his college days, and our community is the better for it. Mark is a longtime criminal law and civil litigator in this state. After graduation from law school, he cut his teeth as an assistant district attorney in Sheboygan County. 2 years out, he became an assistant U.S. attorney for the Western District of Wisconsin. There he represented the interests of the United States, doing so with civility and respect, not just toward those on his side and the courts, but for his opponents, both parties and their lawyers. One of his nominators described her first encounter with Mark. She was an attorney in a Milwaukee law firm, but they met in the segregated housing unit at a federal prison in South Carolina, where Mark took the deposition of her client, a federal inmate, in a case that she was handling pro bono. I was immediately struck by Mark's demeanor during that deposition. Calm and purposeful, articulate and direct, sensitive and respectful. He never attempted to exercise any type of authority over my client. Rather, he showed genuine interest in her story while also diligently representing his client's interests. We'll return to that. Mark's career would take him back to Milwaukee, to the Reinhardt Berner Van Duren firm, where he has been for the past 27 years. He is a widely respected litigator both on the civil side and in the criminal defense sphere. You will appreciate that, with due respect, even affection for Mark, the circumstances occasioning the need for such representation tend not to be joyful for clients. Mark told us his motivation. I am honored to represent people and companies facing some of their most difficult challenges ever, often as targets of government criminal or civil prosecutions. I ensure that the government treats them fairly and affords them due process. I do this because it helps prevent lives from being unnecessarily ruined due to government overreach. Now, to refer to due process in our American legal tradition is to summon up or invoke the concept of depriving someone of life or liberty or property. We are willing as a society to do such depriving, but only with due process, including adversarial proceedings such as trial. Mark is a worthy representative of his clients and an accomplished trial lawyer. He has earned both the gratitude of the clients and the respect of opposing counsel and judges. One of the latter, now retired, wrote us about presiding over a large and long-running commercial case in Milwaukee County. It eventually reached the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and detailed Mark's varied and effective advocacy on behalf of his client. Yet those familiar with the legal profession will appreciate that Mark's success does not derive from an adversarial style. The process is adversarial, but one seeking to persuade a jury or even a judge of a point of fact or law generally will do well to eschew the vinegar. This seems to come naturally to Mark. One former colleague described watching him argue many pretrial and trial motions, examine witnesses at trial, and conduct closing argument before the jury. He was always well prepared, strategic, courteous, and, not coincidentally, effective. This effectiveness often has to do with putting other people, younger colleagues in particular, in a position for accomplishment and success. The judge whom I mentioned a moment ago, as having presided over a complex commercial case where Mark was lead counsel for his side, recounted how she was also impressed by his well-mentored team of associates who actively participated in the weeks-long trial and post-verdict motions. And you will recall the Milwaukee lawyer who first met Mark when he was taking her pro bono client's deposition in a federal prison in South Carolina. She met Mark again years later through a social connection and decided to hire him and his firm to represent the corporation that she had come to serve as general counsel. I'm always impressed, but not surprised, when lawyers are hired by another lawyer who had been their opponent. This client particularly praises how Mark lets the attorneys at his firm doing the day-to-day work shine and grow in their own relationship with members of my company's team. It is clear, she says, that he is passionate about their development. This passion for the development of others, especially newer attorneys, is a consistent theme among those supporting Mark's nomination, and not just Mark's colleagues in the firm. Mark is a fierce champion of diversity in the legal profession, one of our alumni wrote, recounting in particular the common cause Mark made with her and others during her own tenure as president of the Wisconsin Association of African American Lawyers. Whether it was seeing to his firm's financial sponsorship and his own donations, offering space, resources, food, or his own jovial presence, supporting numerous CLEs, informal mentoring sessions, and countless other events, Mark has been a constant source of wisdom, mentorship, and support with both Walla and our Black Law Students Association. Another letter writer attests how Mark has mentored new lawyers from non-traditional backgrounds and squired them to bar events and activities, making them feel comfortable and included. Mark is, among many other things, a connector. His civic reach goes well beyond the legal profession itself. We will forego describing his pro bono work and civic work with entities as varied as the School Sisters of Notre Dame, the Florentine Opera, and the Wisconsin Humane Society. Here, at least, we could appropriately give details. As one of his former partners wrote of Mark's primary work in the law, it is to help individuals and businesses in times of great crisis. This means that neither he nor they can ever fully share how much he brings to those moments. He is an unfailing voice for calm, for fairness, for doing the right things. These moments leave a mark, even when the details aren't shared. I agree with that. Mark, would you please come forward as I conclude? Mark, permit me to say how impressive we found it to read letters of nomination and support from fellow lawyers at your firm, past colleagues, opposing counsel turned clients, there was more than one of those, judges, younger lawyers at other firms and companies, and still others. Your example of excellence, faith, leadership, and service inspires us. And I say us because it is my great privilege to present you on behalf of the Marquette Law Alumni Association Board and the law school community more generally with our Alumnus of the Year Award. Congratulations.
Thank you, Joe. First, congratulations to my fellow honorees for their distinguished works, which demonstrate why they are being rightfully honored here today. To all of you who have given your evening to be here with me, I'm honored by the generosity of your presence, but more importantly, for the presence that you've had in my life, in most cases for many years and for some decades. If any of you feel that I have played some positive part in your life, I can assure you it pales in comparison to what you have done in mine. I'm the son of a machinist, John, and a brilliant, self-educated mother, Nicolina Massey. First-generation Americans, children of sharecropper immigrants who went to school knowing only the Italian language. They struggled, but persevered. They deferred dreams for their children, and they gave what they were capable of giving. While deceased in body, they remain alive in their children and grandchildren. My 4 siblings and I have no journey without their journey, no grit without their grit, no dreams without their dreams. I thank my siblings who inspired me in ways that have only grown in impact and significance as we have aged together. I have been blessed with 3 children and 4 grandchildren who have given me unimaginable joy. And for the last 45 years of my life, the person most responsible for why I appear here before you is my spouse and partner, Sharon Marie, who I am going to ask to stand and be recognized. No Sharon, no Mark as Alumnus of the Year. I am grateful for those who brought my name to the committee for the consideration of this prestigious recognition and for the institution of Marquette University that raised my consciousness for service to others in and outside the practice of law. Now I want to close with sharing my life view about opportunity and the duty I believe we have to others, because we are indeed our brothers and sisters' keeper. Now why? Because I learned years ago that you cannot want something you cannot see. You cannot aspire to be something you do not know. Now, as a high school student, I met a man by the name of Thomas Floyd Dean, who was the father of a young woman classmate and interest of mine. Tom was himself the son of a master mechanic from Crown Point, Indiana. I learned he was a prominent partner at a law firm based in Chicago called Kirkland & Ellis. He saw in me himself a generation removed, both in background and in proclivities not conducive to higher education. He took an interest in me, and I in him. He encouraged me to go to college, and he purchased books and cassette tapes for me to study in order to take the SAT and ACT. But the most important thing he did was to allow me to see something I did not know and I could not want, as my family knew no lawyers or other professionals. He allowed me to aspire to and want something more, something different, and I wanted to be like him. Tom changed the entire trajectory of my life, inspiring me to do for others what he did for me, helping people want something they cannot see, aspire to be somebody they do not know. Everyone in this room can do this for others, and I suspect many are doing just that. But if you're not doing this, and my story causes one of you to go forth with this service to others, well then this evening could not have been more important to me. Thank you.
Let's give one more round of applause for all of our honorees tonight. Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate these wonderful Marquette lawyers. This concludes our program, but you are, of course, free to stay and mingle and enjoy what's left there of the appetizers and I think the bar? I'm not sure. But have a wonderful evening, and thank you all. Good night, and God bless.